Why don't we ever tell secrets at a brewery? Well, because the hops might spill the beans. That's right, folks, we're diving into the frothy, flavorful world of beer, and not just any beer, but the kind that runs through the veins of Canada. In the land of the maple leaf, beer isn't merely a beverage. Oh no, it's a cultural emblem, a symbol of camaraderie, a testament to the nation's rich history. From the bustling city pubs to the tranquil country taverns, beer is Canadian as ice hockey or poutine. It's been the guest of honor at every celebration, the comforter in times of sorrow, and the silent companion on a quiet evening. With each sip, Canadians don't just taste the malted barley and hops, but the essence of their nation brewed to perfection. So grab a cold one, sit back, and let's dive into the frothy history of beer in Canada. And just before we sign off, here's one more for the road. Why don't skeletons fight each other? Because they don't have the guts or the beer. It all started when the first Europeans set foot in Canada, and they didn't come empty-handed. These explorers in the 17th century brought with them a special potion, a golden elixir that would soon become a cherished part of Canadian culture: beer. The early settlers realized that the climate and soil conditions in Canada were perfect for growing barley, a key ingredient in beer. This led to the establishment of the first breweries. These breweries were not just places where beer was produced. No, they were much more. They were social hubs, the heart of the community where people would gather to share stories, celebrate victories, and drown their sorrows. Among the first breweries in Canada were likes of Jean Talon Brewery in Quebec City, which started operations in the late 1600s. It was named after Jean Talon, the first intendant of New France, who recognized the economic potential of brewing and encouraged its development. The beer back then was not just a delightful beverage, but also a vital part of the settlers' diet. The water in those days was not always safe to drink. But beer? That was boiled in the brewing process, making it a safer choice. It was packed with nutrients. A pint of beer was almost like a liquid loaf of bread. Beer played a crucial role in the early days of Canada. It was used as a form currency, with workers often being paid in beer. It was also used in trade with the indigenous people. The love for beer was so great it even led to some of the earliest forms of legislation in the country, with rules and regulations being set up to ensure the quality and fairness of beer production and sale. And thus the seeds for Canada's beer love were planted, and boy did they grow. From those humble beginnings, Canadian beer has blossomed into a rich and diverse industry, with unique brews and flavors that are distinctly Canadian. But that's a tale for another scene. For now, let's raise our glasses to the ale beginnings of Canadian beer. And speaking of beer, here's a little joke for you. Why did the beer go to a bar? Because it needed a bottle service. Fast forward a few hundred years, and the beer scene in Canada was hopping. From the early 18th century onwards, the brewing landscape began to froth with activity. The first commercial brewery in Canada was established in Quebec City in 1768. John Molson, a name synonymous with Canadian beer, set up his brewery just a few decades later in 1786. These breweries were not economic enterprises, but they also played a crucial role in shaping the social fabric of the community. People gathered in taverns, sharing stories over the frothy brew, making beer an integral part of the Canadian culture. As the 19th century rolled in, the number of breweries in Canada expanded dramatically. By mid-century, there were over 200 breweries. These breweries produced a variety of beer types, largely influenced by the diverse immigrant population. The English brought their love for ales and porters, while the Germans introduced lagers. The Scottish, not to be outdone, brought their tradition of strong ales. The influence of immigration on the beer variety was not just limited to types of beer. Techniques and ingredients were also brought from the homeland, adding a unique flavor to the Canadian brew. Hops from England, yeast from Belgium, barley from Germany, each ingredient played its part in crafting a diverse and delightful Canadian beer scene. These breweries, both big and small, were not merely producing beer, they were creating a legacy, a tradition that would shape the Canadian beer scene for centuries to come. Each bottle, each pint, was a testament to the rich history and the ever-evolving culture of beer in Canada. And just like that, from a handful of breweries in the early years to hundreds by the end of the 19th century, Canada was brewing up a storm. A storm that would continue to churn, froth, and bubble, creating a beer scene that is as diverse and unique as the country itself. And here's a little beer humor to lighten the mood. Why don't beers ever get sunburned? Because they always have plenty of shade. But like a bad hangover, Prohibition arrived and threatened to sober everyone up. This dark era of Canadian history, which stretched from 1916 to 1927, saw the banning of the sale, production, and transportation of alcoholic beverages. It was a time when the clinking of beer bottles was replaced with a solemn silence in the breweries. The impact of Prohibition on Canada's beer industry was profound. Breweries that had once been centers of activity suddenly found themselves on the brink of extinction. But as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. To survive, many breweries got creative and started producing near beer. This was a beverage that looked and tasted like beer, but its alcohol content was less than 0.5%, making it legal under the Prohibition laws. Near beer was a far cry from the hearty ales and lagers we're used to, but it was better than nothing. It kept the breweries afloat and the beer-loving public somewhat satisfied. Some of the popular near beer brands included Bravo and Bevo, which household names during this time. But the Prohibition period wasn't just about survival. It was also about resilience and the indomitable spirit of the Canadian beer industry. Despite the challenges, breweries held on to the hope that the dry days would end and the frothy goodness would flow once again. And indeed, the end did come. In 1927, the curtain fell on Prohibition and the breweries sprang back life. The production of real resumed, the near beer was shown the door, and the Canadian public raised a toast to the return of their favorite beverage. As the breweries began to churn out their ales and lagers once again, they did so with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for the art of brewing. This period of struggle had not only tested their resilience, but it also ignited a spark of innovation that would shape the future of Canadian beer. Prohibition may have been a dry spell, but Canadians couldn't be kept from their beloved brews for long. The beer was back, and it was here too. And speaking of beer, here's a little joke to lighten the mood. Why did the beer break up with its girlfriend? Because it said she had too many drafts. In the modern era, beer in Canada isn't just a beverage, it's an art form. And like any art form, it has seen a renaissance in recent years, with craft breweries popping up in every nook and cranny of the country. These breweries are the brainchildren of passionate beer connoisseurs who have taken traditional brewing techniques and added their unique Canadian twist to it. Browsing the beer aisle in Canada is like taking a trip around the world. One can find everything from a traditional Belgian triple to a Japanese rice lager, all brewed locally. This wide variety of beer is a testament to the creativity and ingenuity of Canadian brewers. They've taken the humble barley, hops, yeast, and water and turned it into a symphony of flavors that can rival any wine list. But it's not just about variety. Quality is the name of the game in the Canadian beer scene. Names like Labatt, Molson, and Alexander Keith's are not just brands, they're institutions. These breweries have been honing their craft for over a century, and they've passed down their knowledge and passion from generation to generation. And on a lighter note, why did the beer go to school? Because it wanted to be a draft dodger. Their beers are a testament to the rich brewing history of Canada. Beer is more than just a drink in Canada, it's a part of the national identity. It's a companion during hockey games, a comforter during cold winters, and a celebratory toast during milestones. It's a way to connect with others, and a way to celebrate the simple joys of life. The beer culture in Canada is not just about drinking, but about the camaraderie that comes with it. Breweries are community spaces where people come together to share a pint and a laugh. Beer festivals like the Great Canadian Beer Festival in Victoria are annual events that bring together brewers and beer lovers from all over the country. Today, beer in Canada is not just about the breweries and the brands, it's about the people. It's about the brewmasters, the beer enthusiasts, and the casual drinkers. It's about the stories shared over a pint, the friendships forged, and the memories created. Today, Canada's beer scene is as diverse and vibrant as its people. So what's next for the beer-loving Canadians? Well, the sky's the limit. Canada's beer scene is brewing up a storm, and the future looks as frothy as a freshly poured pint. With the rise of craft breweries, the beer landscape in this great nation is witnessing a thrilling transformation. No longer confined to the traditional lagers and ales, Our beer palates are being tantalized by an array of creative brews. From juicy IPAs to robust stouts and everything in between, the craft brewing revolution is redefining what it means to have a cold one. But the innovation doesn't stop there. Formidable brewers are not just experimenting with flavors and styles, they're also harnessing cutting-edge brewing technologies. Imagine a world where every pint you drink is tailored to your personal taste using artificial intelligence. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But with the pace of technological advancement, it might just become a reality sooner than we think. And as we look to the future, Canada's beer industry is setting its sights beyond our borders. Yes, we're talking about exporting our unique brews to the world. The global beer market is a vast playground, and Canadian brewers are ready to make their mark. Our local beers are not just about great taste, they're a testament to our rich history, our diverse culture, and our unwavering commitment to quality. And it's time we shared this with the world. From coast to coast, the beer industry is poised to become a key player in Canada's economic growth. Not just about producing more beer, it's about producing better beer. And with a thriving community of passionate brewers and beer lovers, the future of beer in Canada is shaping up to be as exciting as it is promising. So here's to the future of froth in Canada. May it be filled with innovative brews, technological leaps, and international acclaim. The future of beer in Canada is as bright as a freshly poured pint on a sunny day. And in the spirit of lightheartedness, here's a little beer joke for you. Why did the beer file a police report? Because it got mugged. Before we call it a night, here's a little joke for you. Why did John Molson, John Labatt, and John Sleeman walk into a bar? Because they were trying to brew up some competition. Back in the day, beer wasn't just a beverage, it was a food staple. In fact, in the early days of Canada, beer was safer to drink than water. So, if you were a settler, you'd be starting your day with a pint of ale instead cup of joe. So next time you raise a glass, remember you're not just drinking a beer, you're sipping on of Canadian history. And before we sign off, why did the beer go to the party? Because it heard there would be pints of fun. Remember, don't be Filipino, be Philippi. Yes, cheers to that.